Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another market analysis for the month of August. Now, it's been a couple weeks since I made one of these, and quite a lot has happened recently. During the final hours of July, Jagex released their Summer Summit where they announced a ton of new content. So now that a couple of weeks have passed, we're going to look at if that has affected the economy much, and really just anything else interesting in the old school RuneScape market this month. As always, guys, if you do enjoy the market recaps, always appreciate a like on the video, helps a ton. Anyway, guys, let's get started. Now, probably one of the craziest things to come out of the Summer Summit, at least as far as the RuneScape economy is concerned, has to do with the Arcane Spirit Shield and the Arcane Sigil. Now, many of you may have already heard of this, but on July 31st, something completely crazy happened to the Arcane Sigil, and to some degree, the Arcane Spirit Shield. Now, during the Summer Summit livestream, somewhat ironically, Mod Arcane announces that there's going to be a new raid, and with it will come a new best-in-slot mage offhand item called the Ward of Elidness. Now, they do announce a ton of items, however, specifically for the Ward of Elidness, Mod Arcane mentions that to make it, you will need an Arcane Sigil. Now, pretty much immediately after the livestream, the Arcane Sigil bumped up from only around 100 mil up to 200 mil, 300 mil, and there are some reports of some Arcane Sigils going for 500 mil, quintupling in price, and that is going to be one of the largest price increases in the shortest amount of time ever. That said, it plummeted back down very quickly. So if the Arcane Sigil is going to be a requirement for one of the new best-in-slot raid items, well, why did it crash back down that quickly? Well, first up here, 500 mil for an Arcane is kind of a complete insane evaluation. Even if the Ward of Elidness is completely broken, it's unlikely that the Arcane would be worth that much. However, in addition to that, when the Ward of Elidness was revealed, players were unsure of whether you'd be able to revert it back into an Arcane after. And it turns out you can, which means while the Arcane Sigil is consumed to get the new Ward of Elidness, you can just swap it back very easily, which means Arcanes aren't going to effectively be taken out of the game, you're just going to be swapping items. Now, with that said, that's not to say the Arcane is not increasing in price. As of today, the Sigil is still worth nearly double what it was before, at currently 185 mil, and that's with raids 6 months or more away. So my prediction is the price will settle for a couple months and then slowly will start to rise leading up to the Tombs of Masket. Once the new content is released, it's probably going to plummet incredibly quickly, but I guess we're just going to have to wait and find out. Now, that kind of leads me into another interesting topic I wanted to discuss. Now, around a month ago, I read a really interesting analysis on item inflation, item sinks, and just the general economy. I will leave a link in the description for that post. It's really well thought out, and I felt incredibly smart reading through the entire thing until I got around 2/3 of the way through and remembered that we're talking about the economy of a 2001 fantasy game. Kind of kidding though, the article is actually really awesome. Now, this article was written by a Reddit user by the name of Scythe. No idea how to say that. Now, in it, they touch on how to implement an effective item sync, and there are realistically two types of item syncs that are in the game and could be implemented. A general item sync, such as Death's Coffer or something like that, or a more specific item sync, for example, the Abyssal Tentacle, which will take out Abyssal Whips from the game. Now, when you have specific item syncs like the Abyssal Tentacle, they are generally a lot more effective, but they only target one item. When you have something like Death's Coffer, which theoretically could take any item out of the game, their effect is lessened unless you make them incredibly invasive and punishing to deal with. Now, I think that relates really well to the next topic I want to talk about, and that is combat achievements. Now, combat achievements came out on the 21st, and it was a fairly general update. It was a very general PvM update that required you to use any weapon you realistically wanted to complete a set of very challenging achievements. Now, it'd be safe to assume that that would push PvM items upwards, but that didn't really happen. For example, the Dragon Hunter Lance on the 21st was around 52 mil, now it's 46 mil, so it's only decreased. The Dragon Hunter Crossbow, very similar thing, 75 mil back on July 21st, and today it's worth 67. We have the Twisted Bow that was worth 860 mil back on July 21st, now it's worth only like 800 mil. I mean, there are quite a few items that you can look at, but combat achievements definitely did not stimulate the economy as much as I had thought it would. But if you compare that to something like the Arcane Sigil, where just a whiff of a mention of it in a live stream rockets it up 5 times in value, we can really see how effective singling out a specific item can be compared to a more general update. Similar to how the Abyssal Tentacle is much more effective of an item sync than, for example, Death is in RuneScape, which is kind of funny to say. Adding a new item that specifically requires the Arcane Sigil is a lot more effective at increasing item prices than something like combat achievements is. Now, of course, there is another huge factor here that the Award of Litness is definitely going to be very useful content and a new best in slot item where combat achievements, really the rewards are very minimal, pretty much just for status and a few cosmetic rewards, but I thought the comparison was still kind of interesting. Okay, so we can kind of agree that combat achievements didn't really have much of an effect on the economy. Prices have continued to plummet. That said, what about Raids 3? I mean, surely a brand spanking new, shiny piece of PvM content, something players have been waiting for a long time, that has got to have an effect on the economy. Well, yes, in most likelihoods it will, but so far nothing has really changed yet, and that's mainly because, well, Raids 3 is still a fair while away. And personally, I don't think much is going to change until Jagex announces an actual release date. I don't think many players are confident in the general timeline that Jagex releases. Raids 3 could come out at the beginning of 2022 like they say, or it could come out at the end of 2022. There's really no way to be sure about that. That said, as soon as there is a specific release date, I really do expect most PvM items to start going up. And that's not to say that items aren't affected. I mean, we just looked at the Arcane and it's up a tremendous amount. You could even make an argument that the Harmonized Orb is falling due to the new Raids 3. There's a new very potent mage weapon that potentially could be outclassing the Harmonized Orb, and I mean the orb has fallen 100 mil just in the last month. That's just one theory though. Now, looking at a few more specific items here, looking at the ham joint always makes me laugh a bit. The ham joint went from around 1.3 mil last year to now being worth almost 10 mil. Now, the original reason this item went up so fast is Visanity's Nightmare, and I'm just really impressed that it has held its value this entire time. Realistically, it's just continued to slowly trend upwards, and I'm very shocked by that. I assumed once the hype died down, the ham joint would just fall back down to maybe 3 or 4 mil again, but it's now one of the most expensive rewards from easy clues, only being slightly led by the Cape of Skulls. Another set of items I wanted to have a look at are the Wilderness weapons. I've been keeping a fairly close eye on them, and they've been rising up a ton. However, just in July, they somewhat plateaued and are starting to fall a bit. We can see a fairly similar trend with the Vigors as well. And this happened pretty much right after the Summer Summit reveal. Now, during the live stream, they kind of revealed that the Wilderness boss rework and changes to the Wilderness are probably not coming that soon. Most likely they're going to be coming in 2022. So it's still a while away, and I think that has affected the price a bit, like the crossbow and the Vigors chain mace. Now, the final thing I wanted to have a look at today is related to an update that was added to the game almost a year and a half ago now. Now, in April of 2020, Jagex introduced some new account restrictions to help prevent rampant botting, specifically in free-to-play. This mainly involved adding in more severe restrictions on brand new free-to-play accounts that required you to have 20 hours of game time, 10 quest points, and 100 total levels to be able to trade some very popular items. Previously, you could get around that by just getting a few quest points, which really didn't take that long. So the question I'm asking today is, did those trade restrictions help? It's been well over a year now, and I want to have a look again. So those came out in April, and right now we're looking at the regular log. At the time, they were nearly worthless at around 10 or 15 GP. Afterwards, they shot up an insane amount to 160, and have been up and down a bit, but currently are worth around 40 or 50 each. So in this case, it does look like it helped. The trade restrictions were either inconvenient enough to push the bots elsewhere, or they're just effective enough at reducing the bots' efficiency. Another item we have here is the Oak Log. Pretty similar trend here. When the measures were introduced, they were worth around 15 or 20 each at the most, shot up immediately to 140, and currently are still worth today 60 or 70 GP each. I would say that was a success. Now, not every item was this successful. For example, if we look at Iron Ore, previous to the update, it was worth around 50 GP, falling incredibly quickly, immediately jumped up to around 170 each, today worth a fairly similar amount. Now, this could be because bots circumnavigated it and just kept mining iron, or the fact that iron is introduced into the game in quite a few other ways, such as PvM drops, skilling bosses, and stuff like that, that just doesn't really matter. And maybe bots weren't the main issue for this. Next here we have U-Logs, which in April were worth around 160, 180, now they're worth around 200, but it does seem like the trend stopped a bit. Now, one item that didn't really help out much is the Wine of Zamorak. This item is just continued to tank. It's one of the most popular methods of botting in free-to-play, and one of the most profitable methods, so even though there are more severe account restrictions, I think bot owners just worked around this. Often bots will wait on Tutorial Island 20 hours logged in just to get around it as quickly as possible, because I think they're less likely to get banned on Tutorial Island for some reason. Back in April, they were worth around 1,300 each, and the measures did quickly jump them up by about 30 or 40%. As of today, they are worth only around 770 each, so they have just continued to fall in value. So in the end, it's a bit hit and miss on whether the measures were totally effective, but overall a positive change, and I really do hope we see a bit more focus on stuff like this in the future. Anyway guys, that is going to be it for the market analysis for August. I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Now before I go here, I want to give a massive thank you to all of my members over on YouTube. Thank you so much to Guy Fox, Wolf of the Hunt, Timothy Chen, Ocelot, and Kush Patel for all being subscribed at the Dragon tier. Always appreciate you guys. Thanks again so much. Also a giant thank you to CJ Ruse, Mexos, Bratton Graffin, NDM1, Yo-Yo Sub 89, and Base Titch for all being subscribed at the Runite tier. Again, means a lot guys, always appreciate it. And of course, thank you to anyone else supporting me in one way or another. As always, if you guys are looking for another way to support the channel, becoming a YouTube member is a great way to do so. You can become immortalized in all of my future videos, get access to my video release schedule, and of course, get a custom role in my Discord server. Thanks again guys, and I will see you next time.